Today is the last day of unprecedented times, and I know you're sitting there and you're mourning. You're mourning the loss of this show, even as you're celebrating the end of quarantine. And before you go, I just want to leave you with one word of advice. There's been a lot of advice on this show. I'm not going to make this complicated. It's actually a very simple and practical thing. On the 6th floor of the King's College in the Fishbowl, there is a vending machine. And there are actually 2 vending machines, one for drinks and one for food. I'm talking about the food one. If you go to the food vending machine, there's all sorts of things in there. Reasonably priced, candies, cookies, chips, good things. But there are a couple items, one in specific, that's $2, and it's chips and guacamole. Do not get the chips and guacamole, please. You'll type in those numbers and you'll think, oh yeah, I get that sweet taste of avocado in my mouth. And you'll take out the chips and you'll take out the guacamole and you'll open up and like eat a couple chips, you're feeling good, and then you look down and you realize there are way more chips here than there is guacamole here. And there's nothing so disappointing as that experience, as having way too many chips for that small amount of guacamole. Please don't get that unless you want to experience tragedy and disappointment on a massive scale. I promise you, nothing will compare to that horror. But this isn't just about chips and guacamole, let's be honest, right? Because the whole world can be mapped onto this chips guacamole paradigm. That's right, I'm talking about the expectations reality divide. Reality is the guacamole, your expectations are the chips. And oftentimes we're sitting there and we're trying to dip our chips into the guacamole, our chips of expectation, the guacamole of reality, and we realize we're only getting a tiny little bit of guacamole on top of our massive chip of expectation. Your expectations are way out of proportion to what's going on in reality. We've all experienced this, right? Maybe you showed up to King's and you thought, my roommates are going to be awesome. They're going to do everything that I want. We're going to be best friends. And you realize you hate them. Or maybe you're sitting there and you have your high school sweetheart from back home and you think, this will last, this will be good. It won't. Christmas break is going to suck for you. Or maybe you were sitting there thinking, this show is going to be really funny and enjoyable. Expectations, reality, that's what I'm talking about. Now, how do we save ourselves from disappointment? Well, one option is to just face reality head on. You can't even do that. That's not even possible. That'd be like taking only the guacamole and then dipping your finger in it and eating the guacamole. That's disgusting. We don't even want to think about that. Some people don't even think of, they're like, you know what? I'm just not going to change my expectations. I'm not going to change the reality. I'm just going to go for it. And this is like, I had an experience like this once where I was at a restaurant. It was for brunch. Brunch, that was my first mistake. Second mistake was ordering a $9 bottle of sparkling water. And the third mistake was my waiter. My waiter came over and he opened the bottle of water and he poured it over my cup. But he missed the cup and started pouring it on the table. Now you and I, reasonable people, hopefully in that situation would think, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna lift the bottle up and stop pouring the water all over the table. That's not what our friend did. No. He thought the only way out is through. And so he kept moving the bottle. And he moved it to the left. Missed the cup again. Water all over the table. Moved it to the right. That's right. Water all over the table. Kept moving it. Finally landed it over the cup. And he just kind of turned it back and he looked at us and he was like, I'll come clean that up. And he walked away. Don't be like that waiter. You have to do something with your expectations. Now, some of us think, I've got it. I'm going to change reality to fit my expectations. This is the Thanos strategy. Speaking of Thanos, by the way, people give him a lot of flack. They think, oh, why'd you kill half the population? Why didn't you double the resources? That's stupid. You know how hard it is to think about all that and all the energy? No. Thanos didn't go far enough. That was his problem. He should have killed the population off to like 1/10. Because here's the deal. If you do 1/2, in a generation or two, the whole population's back and you've got the same exact problem. Thanos needed to solve the problem by going further. Anyway, I don't need to talk about that anymore. Team Thanos all the way. That's why I'm wearing this purple tie. Okay, anyway. I have the Thanos mindset with my life. When I was a child, I thought the world revolved around me. I still think that, but I thought it too when I was a child. And we had this big purple recliner in my basement. It was like a big Thanos recliner. And one day I thought, I am the king of the world, I deserve to be over everything. So I got a beanbag and I put it on the chair. And I got another beanbag and I put it on top of that. And then I got a couch cushion and put it on top of that couch cushion. Then I stacked 4 pillows on top of that, climbed up to the top and sat there like Yertle the turtle. And then it fell over and I fell on the ground. Reality will always destroy you and your expectations. So what's our option? Well, you have to conform your expectations to match reality, which means at the very beginning you might have to throw out some of those chips, throw out some of those bad expectations to match what you have. I promise in the long run, I hope in the long run, it'll make all our lives a little more worthwhile. And if I could leave you with one more thing about that, one of my expectations coming into King's is that it would be a long time. 4 years is a long time. And semester after semester, year after year, I think that, and it actually goes by really, really fast. There's not as much guacamole in the bowl as I thought originally. So take the time to focus on the things that you think are actually most valuable. Enjoy the year, enjoy however many years you have left, and enjoy the rest of this episode of Unprecedented Times. And for our first guest, introducing the illustrious and incomparable Dean of Students, David Leedy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Micah. Great to be here.
You can move the pillows however
I can.
you want.
Can I stack them up and sit on top?
You can't. Yeah, absolutely.
I probably won't. I shouldn't do that.
You might just tip over the back of the couch.
I've always dreamed of being taller than what I actually am, so.
Tell our audience a little bit about you, especially for the freshmen who are out there who probably don't know you or what you do. What is a Dean of Students? Why are you here? Those sorts of things.
Well, that's a good question. I'm still trying to figure out what I do.
Okay.
So I do a lot of everything, but I'm here to make the experience better for students outside the classroom, right? That's all those realms, whatever I can do to make it the most enjoyable, transformative. That's why I'm here.
What has been your biggest challenge as Dean of Students?
Biggest challenge? COVID-19. Or as my son would say, my
Really?
my 6-year-old son would say, COVID-19. No, I would say the biggest challenge, and this actually predates my time as Dean of Students. I began not as Dean of Students, but as Director of Student Life. I think trying to create student life when there was no student life. So what does it look like when you're starting college and there are no structures, there's no history, there's no nothing. So that was immensely challenging, fun.
Yeah.
Complex, maddening, but good.
And I've heard that you were involved in the beginnings of the house system too, right? So what explain that process? Because obviously I think most people here take it for granted. They're like, oh yeah, the houses, that's like one of our big things. We love that, but.
Yeah, I'm Lord Voldemort.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so, no, I hope not. So the house system didn't exist prior to 2004, so when Dwayne Moeller, Zach Moeller, who's now a junior, his dad had the idea, like would be what would make Kings uniquely Kings and be awesome. So it was kind of a Hogwartsian kind of idea. So the brains behind it was not me, it was him. But I was the guy that kind of put feet to it, made it happen. Me and the small team of people, including students at that time. So yeah, so it took a lot of creative thinking outside the box, a lot of minds and ideas better than mine, but yeah. That's how it came, it was 03, 04.
Sweet.
When it was birthed.
Now, today is 9/11, obviously, and you moved here in 2000?
2000.
And so you were here for...
The year you were born.
Yeah. Don't tell them. I'm supposed to have gravitas and stuff.
Oh.
What was that like? What was being in the city for that like? Because obviously most of us don't remember it.
Well, let me just, if I can kind of go back to that day. I was, that morning, I had gone actually with students to the United Nations.
Oh, wow.
For there's this prayer breakfast that's every year that marks the opening of the General Assembly. So went up there with about 4 students. We were there listening to a speaker, Miroslav Volf, Yale professor, speak about how to overcome hatred and terror through love. It was a Christian sponsored event. Meanwhile, people were taking airplanes or commercial airliners and hijacking them and flying them into buildings right here. So the irony was crazy. So that during that event, the attacks happened. So I'm not sure how much detail you want to go into, but I remember getting one of the guys. There's a pre-smartphone, so we couldn't look at the news and see what's going on. So we didn't know what was happening. Then my friend, staff member, who was with me, the Kings guy, he had a BlackBerry, got a text saying a plane had flown into the World Trade Center. Wow. And so I'm thinking this is like what happened in Empire State Building many years ago. Small passenger, six-person plane flew in. It's happened multiple times in New York. They lose control. But now he said it's a commercial airliner. I'm like, what? And then a little while later, another text, and another one flew into the other tower. I'm like, what? This can't be happening. But nobody during that event, and there were probably 300 people in this room. There were a lot of ambassadors. Nobody knew what was happening because nobody had smartphones.
Right.
And when the event ended at 8:45, somebody came in. We all got ushered out of the UN. They closed the UN down. Walked out of the UN onto First Avenue, looked down First Avenue, and from there to here is 4 miles. But you could see that Lower Manhattan was just buried in smoke and ash. And sirens were going everywhere. Didn't know what was happening, who was attacking us. The college at that time was in the Empire State Building. So we're like, well, let's go back there. They shut down the subways, the bridges, everything was shut down. So what do you do? So we thought, let's go back to the Empire State Building. It was closed. They closed it down. So we ended up What do you do on a Tuesday morning at 9 a.m.? You go into an Irish pub. It was Irish pubs are everywhere. So there was a TV. So we just saw the towers fall, and that was like this is not real.
Yeah,
it's a movie, but it was real. Later, we ended up, me and those students, being on 2nd Avenue while people were streaming north from Lower Manhattan like zombies. Nobody was talking, covered in dust and ash, these hollow looks in their face. Many of them had lost coworkers and friends. Where we were handing out water and just trying to talk with them and encourage in any way we could. So, but on a comical note, my wife was getting a root canal at the time. And so while they're in the middle of this, like the hygienists were freaking out. What do we do? And so they were going to bolt and leave her in the office.
Are you serious?
Yeah. She's like, no, you can't do that. You got to finish my root canal.
Right.
So they agreed to finish it, and they did. She got out, didn't know what to do, didn't know where I was. The towers were taken out, so the cell phone towers, so you couldn't talk on the phone. So she's like, my husband needs ties. I'll go shop for some ties. So I guess new ties out of the deal that day.
So she negotiated to keep her root canal, got some ties.
Yeah, for me.
Wow,
yeah.
That's kind of her.
Yeah. But this is cool. One last part of this. She's like, okay, what do I do now? I'm going to walk home to Astoria, which is like probably 4 miles from Midtown. And you can go many routes to Astoria, right? So she started walking just up the avenues, crossing over. Well, she just happened to walk right where we were on 2nd Avenue, giving out water. This never happened in 20 years.
That's amazing.
So maybe some strange coincidence.
That's cool. I'm curious as we're wrapping up, just a little bit about you so that students can see your face and not just be like, oh, there's Dean Leedy, he does things. Now they know what you do. They need to know who you are. What do you like to do outside of Kings? What does your life look like? I mean, you just mentioned you live in Queens.
Yep.
You have a family, but what more is there?
What more is there? Well, I have a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old.
Okay.
So much of my
That's
life is consumed in spending time with them. My son is 6 years old. He's a beast. Physical. He's very physical. So I spend much of my day wrestling and fighting and getting battered and bruised.
I'm sure he's appreciated you being home then over the summer.
Oh, he's loved COVID. It's been great for him, not for me. So aside from that, I'm a bicyclist. Love to bike. On the weekends, I'm on my trainer during the week, especially during COVID.
Yep.
I used to have a gym, but now it's gone because of COVID, like many things. But I'll do that a couple times a week in my house, and then I'll go in my apartment, and then I'll go on the weekends, bike over from where we are in Astoria, over to the Upper East Side, through Harlem, up to the George Washington Bridge, over to Jersey, and then keep going north from there. Then eventually you're back in New York again. So I love biking.
That's awesome. Any final words of encouragement or warning or wisdom to the students?
Warning?
This is our final show, so this has got to be good.
Dang. There's a lot that you're asking of me.
Just whatever comes to your mind first.
Wear your mask. That's been said. Zeke Ward said that. Enjoy the time. I know it's crazy times, but life still happens. Relationships still happen. And I've been out of college a number of years. I still have some close friendships that have endured. And relationships don't just happen. You've got to invest and pursue. So even though that may be a tighter circle, enjoy the people around you. Take time to connect, build friendships, be intentional, laugh, and watch this show. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, sweet. Thank you for being here. It's been a blast. Thank you for all the work you do. And we're looking forward to a good year.
Hey, thanks for having me. This has been one of my life dreams to come and be on this show.
Me too, honestly.
Yeah.
And now introducing
Actually,
our
Catherine, do you mind if I stop you for a second? I was watching the show because I have it running 24/7 because I'm full of myself. And I saw the end of episode 5 where I kind of yelled at you a little bit. And I've been noticing, I don't know, I feel like there's something that we need to clear the air between us. So I'd just like to say, I apologize. I was too harsh. I was in the throes of fear from Colin, and the sword fight and everything. Yeah. But that was uncalled for, and I didn't want to. So I'm sorry about that.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. I want to say I'm sorry also for locking you out last episode.
You locked me out of the studio?
I mean, I didn't say that, right?
Hey,
no.
I get it.
It wasn't.
It's okay.
It was like a fluke thing, the email, the memos.
Right,
it can be confusing.
No, it's good. But are we good?
I mean, yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we were, reconciled and stuff.
That's an interesting word you chose there, reconciliation.
I feel like what even is reconciliation?
It sounds really familiar. Like I've heard this word a couple times already.
It seems like something that it would take an entire year to figure out.
Yeah. There's a lot of dynamics,
there are
forgiveness, trust building, justice, reconciliation.
Have you heard of this thing called interregnum, actually, at the King's College?
I have.
What is interregnum, Catherine?
Interregnum is a year-long competition of sorts / discussion we have here at the King's College. If you didn't know, you are all required to participate in it. Yeah?
Yeah. We cancel school in the fall and in the spring and held competitions for a couple days. Yeah. It's a blast. This is our informative promo for the freshmen, I think, is what this has just come down to.
And if you didn't know, this show has always been about interregnum. Wait, has this whole show been leading up to this moment? Has this whole show been about interregnum?
Always has been.
I'm so excited to introduce our second interview of the day. Please join me in welcoming Professor Brenberg, Executive Vice President and Associate Professor of Business and Finance. Welcome.
Hey, Catherine, how are you? Good to see you.
Hey, nice to see you. I'm doing well. How are you?
I am fantastic. It's so good to be on campus, so good to be in the student lounge here, and so good to be talking to you.
Great. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. A lot of the freshmen and first years, it's their first time meeting you. So how'd you find King's? How'd you get to this wonderful institution?
Sure. Yeah, it's been a long time now. This is my 11th year at King's, and I got here in sort of a random way. I was working down in Washington, D.C., in the kind of the think tank and public policy world. And a friend of mine down there said, hey, there's this really interesting college up in New York City. It's a Christian college, but it's in the middle of New York City and cares a lot about religious liberty, political liberty, economic liberty. And that was just actually strange to me. I couldn't believe that I'd never heard of King's before, but I got in touch with then the provost at King's and said, I'm very interested in what you do. I'd love to help out in some way or get to know you better. And he said, he kind of went all the way. He said, well, why don't you come up here and interview for a teaching job because we need a business professor. And at that time, my wife and I had just had our first child, and we'd only been in DC a year or two, so we weren't really settled there. And we said, well, why not give it a shot? At least it's a free trip to New York City. So I came up to New York and was going to interview for this job. And King's was going to put me up in what was the corporate apartment at that point. Wow. So if you were a guest, that sounds fancier than it was. It was in the old Vogue building, if anybody knows anything about the Vogue. But anyway, they sent me to that apartment to stay. And when I got there, somebody was actually already staying in the apartment. They had double booked me, so I had nowhere to stay. And I called the provost, who I was going to be interviewing with the next day, and said, I have nowhere to stay. And he said, well, why don't you come stay with me? So I thought, oh, this is great. I'm going to interview for a job up here, and I'm going to spend the night before in the apartment of the guy who's going to interview me. And I very quickly realized that wasn't a good idea. So I called a friend, crashed on his couch, did the interview the next day, and the rest is history. 11 years later, here we are. We have added two kids to the mix, but still in New York City, and really just as thrilled to be here as the day we started, 11 years ago. Yeah.
I love that. That's a great story. Well, as a business professor, I know you're very big on etiquette and interview etiquette and whatnot. So I heard a rumor that you have this superpower, and it is handshakes, giving a proper handshake. So I was wondering if you could take like a minute, just explain what a proper handshake is, what it looks like, and how would you adapt in this COVID-19 environment?
Yeah, I have to say it actually makes me a little bit sad to have to talk about handshakes right now because that seems like a bygone era. I love shaking hands, and maybe it's my superpower, maybe it's my kryptonite, I don't know. But I can't do it anymore, and it makes me so sad. Proper handshakes are easy, and it mostly comes down to looking somebody in the eye and having a firm grip. And most of our students are actually pretty good at it, which I love. So normally, in all my classes, I'd go around every class and shake everyone's hand and say, hi, I can't do that anymore. So I've been thinking about what I'm going to do about that, and I feel like maybe the closest next best is to just stand right in front of somebody and look them so deeply in their eyes that they feel like you're shaking their hand.
That's intense.
And that'll either work great or that's going to freak out every one of my students and I'll get fired by the end of this semester. But we'll see what happens. That's the best I've got. That's the best I've got right now.
That would be very scary to have a professor stare you down. I would think I was in trouble.
But it's a stare of handshake. It's a stare of welcome.
Of course, that makes sense. So I know you also have a history of like a sports background. So can you tell us a little bit about your sports background? And then I have an interesting question attached to that. If you had to compare life right now to a sport, whether it be baseball or football or maybe even chess, if you want to consider that a sport, what would you compare life to?
Yeah. Well, I do love sports. I played a lot of them growing up. I didn't do a lot else growing up but play sports. And I love baseball. I played football. I played football in college, so that's been a big part of my, kind of my formative experience. I think a lot of life in terms of what I learned via football. And so I do love sports. And I do think that this moment is kind of analogous in some ways. When I was playing football, we'd often be in a situation at the end of the game where we'd be in a 2-minute drill. And that just means the clock is ticking, time is short, you've got to get down the field and score, and kind of all bets are off. It's a whole new game, and you're kind of running a hurry-up offense. You don't have time to huddle. You're just kind of at the line, calling plays and running. And in some ways, that's what this semester feels like. For a 2-minute offense, you have to do a lot of planning ahead of time to know what you're going to do in that moment. But then in that moment, it's all adaptation. And that's what we're doing, I think, a lot at King's. We've done a ton of planning. We have a way that we want to do this semester, but we don't know what's going to happen. We're going to have to adapt on the fly. We're going to have to call an audible at the line. But if you're prepared and ready, you can do that. And it'll be great. And you'll score and you'll win the game. And I think we can do that But this feels like a 2-minute drill to me, and that's exciting.
Do you feel very ready for this semester in any way, shape, or form?
You know, I feel ready. I spent a lot of time thinking about how to do this semester, so I've got a plan in my head. But I also know I'm going to learn more this semester than I ever have before as a teacher, because I'm going to have to be ready to adapt, and I'm going to have to be ready to help my students figure out how to do this semester well. And so I'm going to be teaching them some things. They're going to be teaching me a lot of things, whether it has to do with technology or just how to create the right rhythm in the classroom. And that's great. You want to be learning in your career. And I'm so glad that 11 years into this job, I get the chance to be a learner again. And I'm going to do everything I can to embrace that.
Yeah, that's a great outlook. So we actually have a little bit of a game for you, if you're willing to participate.
I'm game for a game, yeah.
So right behind that pillow over there, there are some cards.
Okay,
Yeah,
got
right
it.
over there.
Yep.
And they say, I have and I have not. So
Okay.
basically the game is I have or I have not.
Yeah.
So I'll read out a statement and then you can either agree or disagree with it. So this is a TV show that's recently announced that they are going to shut down, but I'm very curious. Have you ever watched Keeping Up with the Kardashians? And if so, what are your thoughts?
So I have not watched Keeping Up with the Kardashians. I do remember one time, though, I was in some game with another professor, and the question was, can you name all of the Kardashians? And for some reason, just before that, somebody had been telling me all about the show, and I nailed every one of them. And the students thought I was some kind of weirdo or super genius. I don't know for knowing all the Kardashians, but I've never seen it. And it's going off the air, right?
Yeah.
This is it. So I better watch it now, because otherwise it's going to be reruns.
Yeah, it is a masterpiece in many ways, I guess you can say.
I guess masterpiece is one of those words that is in the eye of the beholder, huh?
Fair, very fair.
All right.
All right, second question. Never have I ever regretted doing a TV interview or saying something live on air.
I have
Yeah.
regretted. I mean, when you're doing these things, you know what this is like. You've been doing TV now for 2 weeks here at King's.
this
you
is great.
always have an interview and you get to the end of it and you say, oh, why did I say it that way? Or why did I forget to say that? It happens to me constantly. I think the key is forgetting those moments and moving on. Otherwise, you spend the rest of your day thinking, oh. But that happens in the classroom too. Professors, common occurrence for professors.
Oh, fair. I understand. I know students probably feel the same way when we talk in class and then sometimes regret the things we say.
Yep.
All right, third question. Never have I ever considered packing up everything in New York and moving to Minnesota.
Ooh, this is where it gets real. Okay, so I love
question.
being at King's. I love New York City. I have definitely thought about packing everything up and moving. I love Minnesota. It's where I was born and raised, and it's my happy place.
So what is it about Minnesota? How is it different from New York?
I love it. Well, it's home, one, so there's all the attachments of home, but I absolutely love white pine trees and lakes. And I know that New York has those upstate, but Minnesota has the white pine trees and the lakes that I grew up with.
Yeah.
And if I'm sitting under a white pine looking out at a clear, still lake, I'm done. I could be there all day. And there are times when I'm sitting, walking down Broadway and somebody bumps me in the shoulder or yells at me, or you get the whiff of something. You're like, what is going on in this city? And then I think about the white pine tree and the lake. And I say, you know what? Could I do that?
Yeah.
But then I realize this is where God's called me. This is where God's called our family. He's put those smells and those sights and all those things in my life for a reason, and I have to embrace them. And I'll go home for the summer and get a little bit of the white pine in the lake.
Oh, amazing. Nature. Nothing like nature.
That's
it is
right.
good to every once in a while get out of the city and just relax and be able to see
Amen.
everything, the views.
Amen.
Yeah. Last question. Never have I ever slept in my office or at work.
So that's easy. I have not slept in the office. I know that office camping is super popular for professors at King's, and I love camping, but I've been fortunate to live close enough to the office that I can go home and sleep. But God bless those professors who do it. I'm telling you, professors who sleep in their office love their students and they love what they do, and I couldn't be more grateful for them.
Amazing. Okay, well, thanks for playing along with the game.
You bet, my
I think
pleasure.
We learned a lot about you. So, just to close, do you have any final words of wisdom for the freshmen, the first year, or just any ideas to encourage them as they get back on campus?
Yeah, well, number one, I'm so glad that you're here, that you're with us this semester, whatever that may mean for you on campus or remote. And this is an exciting time to be in college. Nobody's ever lived through a time like this in college, and so we're kind of inventing it as we go. And I would say probably the key, from my perspective, to doing this well is choosing your perspective. You get to decide how you're going to view the things that come into your life this semester. The challenges, the good things, the ups and the downs, we filter them through the choices we make about what they mean to us. And my encouragement to you is choose a perspective of growth, of learning, of opportunity. There's value in everything that you're going to encounter. I think if you choose that perspective, it's going to work out well for you. It's going to be great for Kings. And this is going to be a semester worth doing, no matter what it ends up looking like. There you go.
Well, thanks for that. Thanks for being our last interview here on Unprecedented Times. And now, introducing our little secret project we've been working on. This is Don't Stop Believin'. Hit it, Micah.
Just a small town girl living in a lonely world. She took the midnight train going anywhere. Just a city boy, born and raised in South Detroit. He took the midnight train going anywhere. A singer in a smoky room, the smell of wine and cheap perfume. For a smile they can share the night. It goes on and on and on and on. Strangers waiting up and down the boulevard. Their shadows searching in the night. Streetlights, people living just to find emotion, hiding somewhere in the Don't stop believing. Hold on to that feeling. Streetlight people. Don't stop believing. Hold on. Streetlight people. Don't stop believing. Hold on to that feeling.
Well, this is it. This is the end.
This is what freedom tastes like.
Are you
It's
ready?
time.
Are you ready to brave going back on campus?
I am.
Let's go.
Let's do this. All right. Well, I think as we're walking, you should be aware that 5% of the King's College, 5% can put us back online. So, all right, let's go. All right, ready? And we're off. All right. I think we're going to school. Micah?
I can't see. What do you mean by that 5% number, Catherine?
5%.
How many people is that?
22. 22 people.
Consecutively?
22 people consecutively.
Oh my God.
All right.
That's so few people.
That is
What are we
it.
gonna do?
So that means be careful, socially distance, wash your hands, everything that the King's College and the CDC says. Oh, look who's here! Look, who's here? Here we are. We are back.
Yeah, I can't really.
The King's College. Oh, watch out. Watch out. There's people walking. I'm so sorry. Here we are. The King's College.
Thank you for watching Unprecedented Times.
I hope you enjoyed. Yeah. You can't even see your eyes. Look here. Yeah. Try again. There you go. Better. We are so excited to be back on campus with you guys. We are ready. Be safe. Stay healthy.